Hello and welcome to The Other Way, a lifestyle podcast exploring uncommon, unconventional, or otherwise alternative approaches to health, spirituality, identity, work, and life. I'm your host, Kasha. I'm the founder of InFlow, a women's wellness brand that designs intentional products to help women reconnect to their unique cyclical rhythms and find a balance between being and doing. This podcast is an extension of my mission with InFlow. Here, you'll find interviews with inspiring humans, trailblazers, researchers, spiritual teachers, and more, all on the journey of doing things the other way. Now, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Other Way. I am dialing in from a very rainy California. We need the rain, but it's now been like several days on end, and I'm starting to just go into full hermit mode over here. Just full on hermit mode. There are only so many days of cozy tea and walking with your raincoat that one can have before I start to get a little bit antsy. But anyway, I digress. I have a very special guest for you all today. I am speaking with Emily Smith, who is a licensed acupuncturist in both traditional Chinese medicine and Japanese acupuncture. On today's episode, we're going to be diving into Japanese acupuncture and really energetic health. We're going to talk about how Japanese acupuncture differs from traditional Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese medicine style of acupuncture. And then we're going to be covering the importance of cultivating, recognizing, and protecting our energetic health. As a society, we're very fixated on our physiological health. We measure everything from our HRV on our Aura rings or our steps on our Aura watch. But there's something that the East is very attuned to in the form of energetic health. And it's something that for a lot of us, we are not consciously cultivating or even bringing awareness to. If you've ever heard the term energy giver versus energy sucker, or the term for somebody who is an energy vampire, quote unquote. That is all of what we're referring to. This concept that we are constantly exchanging energy with the world around us, may it be energy with the people we spend time with or don't spend time with if we isolate ourselves a lot, or how much time we spend with the outside environment and the influence that has on our well-being. All right. This is an incredible episode. I think it is so relevant for all of us who are tuning in right around the holidays, which is when I know this is going live. This is a time where we spend a lot of time with others. This is also a time where we might feel called to pull into our energetic cave with ourselves. And so becoming more aware of energy givers versus energy takers and how to cultivate healthy energy for ourselves and protect our own energy, I think is a very relevant topic. Let's dive in. All right, we have a lot to cover, but before we dive into all the topics that I have teed up for us and probably some more as we start our conversation, I would love to start with a question that I ask every single guest, and that is, what are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
Playful and deliberate, curious, very curious.
That definitely comes through. Deliberate. How does that show up for you?
I'm 60 years old, and I think a lot of my conditioning and maybe even wounding, if I can say that, was I had to figure it out on my own. In our society, we tend to want things so quickly, and immediate gratification becomes very important. If we can slow down and do things really deliberately, and it means it takes more time, and especially if we're not wanting to harm other people that we are in relationship with, being deliberate about what we say and how we act and considering our behavior adds depth and adds real interesting connection that we can jump over or sideswipe if we're not careful.
I love that observation and perspective. I think in today's like dopamine addicted society, that often gets left behind. I wonder too if part of that deliberate nature might come from your background and how you spent so much of your life in Japan and studying traditional Asian medicine. Those influences feel like they have a lot of depth and intentionality. And that's definitely the way that you treat.
Great. I think it came from my father. My father was a chemist and he was playful. Chemists are super precise. He's all about the details and the precision, accurate and precise. And he gave me a blueprint to work from. And later, when I was looking at medical school and deciding not to do Western medicine and wanted to do acupuncture, that blueprint guided me. And I did Chinese medicine. I did Chinese acupuncture in San Francisco and then realized that I need the precision of Japanese acupuncture, which is delicate and shallow needling. We don't want to cause extra pain in the client. No. And I learned quickly people are not excited about needles. We just aren't. And the prospect of having pain in your treatment is really turns people off. So for me, learning that there was a gentle, more nuanced way to do acupuncture really all the bells went off. That's exactly what I want to do. And that required going to Japan first, but then required learning Japanese and going to acupuncture school there in Japanese. And I don't know really how that happened, but there was a switch that got flipped. It's like, okay, this is what needs to happen. And I could not resist really. This was the path that was laid out for me. So I took that path.
How old were you when you moved to Japan?
I was 28 and I had finished acupuncture school in San Francisco. So I have an undergraduate degree in biology and went to acupuncture school for 3 years in San Francisco, Chinese acupuncture and herbs. And I was ready to get started. I wanted to work. And I had learned that the Japanese do it differently. So I went to Japan for 4 months and I was 28 and I thought it can't be that different. I'll get it and I'll come back and I'll get to work. But the truth was, there's so much more to it than can be taught in a classroom. You really need to get your hands on bodies. You need to see practitioners. You really need to soak it up. And that takes time. You can't just go and get it, which is back to the deliberate. And it's frustrating. It's like, I want it now. I want to get on with my life. This is my life. That was the chapter that had to happen.
It really does speak to a very huge difference in philosophy between the Eastern and Western parts of the world when you're working with like subtle energies and these techniques that require hours and years of experience. There isn't like a magic pill that you can just take to suddenly digest it all and understand it inside and out. 28, you're starting to near 30. At this point, you've spent so much time in school. This is also like back in the day when acupuncture wasn't as popular as it is now. I don't think it was fully covered by insurance at that time. And now you're going off to Japan doing this completely different thing. What was that like for you emotionally?
Yeah, it was definitely complicated. I think my decision not to become a Western doctor was the first, certainly for my mom, was like, what? You're going to study acupuncture? And her first response was, it's Asian men. You're going to be dealing with Asian men. And I was raised by a single mom. So she understood the world in a way that I didn't. She protected me from the prejudice and the sexism that I would definitely meet in Japan. But I really felt strongly that all of the things in my life had led me this way. I took a year off from college to study macrobiotics. I was really interested in Japanese cooking, and the American diet didn't work for me. I really felt too much meat, too much salt, too much seasoning, too much of everything, and not a lot of time just eating with people who are grounded and resourced and nourishing each other. I didn't get any of that here in America. I got that in Japan. So I went not just for the acupuncture, but for the lifestyle and the way they, and certainly I'm a Westerner. I'm an English speaking, able bodied woman who was very eager to learn Japanese, learn their ways. So they were welcoming. It's not true of everyone who goes to Japan. So there was a special window for me. I have to acknowledge that. But my willingness and their eagerness to share what they had was a nice fit. And that made it was not easy, definitely not easy going to Japan. And I was alone and I was lonely and I was confused and I didn't know the language. 28 is like the Saturn return, if you're familiar with that. You're going through a lot of life changes. You've been through a lot and you're, wait, is this really the path for me? And so there was a lot of doubt and dark night of the soul searching, but ultimately it felt like so much better than what I was looking at in America.
Oh, I can relate to that on so many levels. I feel like my Saturn return happened a little bit late. Around 28, I went through a massive breakup with somebody who I thought I was going to be with forever. And there was like a late realization for me that this wasn't my person. But I feel like that career shift and like that total life path shift happened a little bit later. It was around like one or so. So I felt like those years were so tumultuous, especially with like, the narratives that we have in society of like, these are the milestones and these are the ages at which it happens. And so I think that is just so powerful to be making that change at that age, and to hear your story is definitely very inspiring. I'm curious, other than the needling technique, like if we can zoom out and look at Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, and then like Japanese medicine or Japanese acupuncture, but also the philosophy as a whole, how would you summarize the difference between the two?
So Chinese acupuncture was actually imported to Japan. It all originated in China, and they have 5 different branches: body work, needling, herbs, moxibustion, lifestyle and diet. That was all imported to Japan. The Japanese are just masters at adjusting what they were given, altering it or learning from it, and then deciding what they wanted to use. And an interesting thing about Japanese acupuncture is a lot of blind people are trained to do it because they're so dexterous. Their hands are very dexterous and they're used to feeling a lot with their hands. I think back to the differences between Chinese and Japanese, or Chinese and Japanese, is the Japanese like to touch the body. They like palpation and they see that yes, there's a map of where the acupuncture points are anatomically, but you palpate. Everybody's body is changing every day. And that point is going to move and the size of that point is going to change. The Japanese really like to feel the body and welcome their hands into the body and alert the body or greet the body. This is where we're going to be working. And it's really important to not scare the body. This is, we might talk about this a little bit too, that we have this thinking mind, but we have this body that is so energetic. And if we can not scare the body and reassure it that this is a good thing, then the nervous system relaxes, the organs work effectively, and the body is more resilient to the life that's happening. So the Japanese really pay a lot of attention to how the body responds to touch. The Chinese was just like, no warning. You put a needle here and then you put a needle here. And there was a protocol. If you come in for back pain, there's a certain set of needles. And you don't alert the body at all. So it's a shock when the sharpness, but then you don't know where the next needle is coming from. The Japanese are much more about let's relax the system and let it sort itself out. The physiology will do its wise thing. But the Chinese are like, let's shock the body. And there's wisdom, there's intelligence in that too. You have your immune system, it's going to wake up, it's going to fight. This is a foreign body. The needle's a foreign body. So there's wisdom in both, but I think a lot of people in America are so exhausted and stressed out that the more gentle approach is oftentimes more effective. Not that the Chinese is not effective, but it's more of a stress to the body.
Yeah, I'll speak from my own experience. That's definitely been the case. I did study traditional Chinese medicine for 2 years, and over that time, I developed such needle anxiety simply because of having needles inserted into my body during class. Even when I come to see you, even though it doesn't hurt when I get acupuncture from you, I still start sweating, I tense up. Every single time. It's just a physiological reaction. I feel like the needles that they use are also larger in traditional Chinese medicine. I also feel like they go in deeper. Sometimes they're like turning it in there, and that just doesn't work for me at all, like for my body, at least right now.
And your body is slim. So there are bodies that are very sturdy. They're robust, like people who work in construction who are moving heavy things all the time, working outside, they are sturdy and they can take bigger, stronger needles and they will probably need them. But those of us who are not so robust, We need a more nuanced, sensitive approach. I think that's the value of seeing the body you're working on. It's not like one size fits all. And depending on our lifestyle, what's our work? What are our leisure activities? How is the stress in our life impacting our body? And I think Chinese and Western and Japanese practitioners do that. You, it's that's the difference between Western medicine and more traditional medicines. Like each body is different. We need to approach that body. All of us are extremely different and unique and need to be approached differently.
You mentioned the energetic body and how in the West, by and large, we tend to focus on the physiological aspects of health, maybe even the emotional slash mental aspects of health. But there is a lack of awareness and any sort of attention on the energetic sides of health. Could you start by defining what you mean by that? Because I think it's so powerful, but also such a foreign concept too for a lot of people.
So in the West, we don't like the word energy. It is very hard to define, and we don't really have a sense of it. But if you're in the room with someone you love and you haven't seen them for say 6 months, you will be like dogs when they see people come back from the war, or when kids see their parents after a while. There is so much excitement, and you see that in their body language. You see it in their face, in the sound of their voice, in their eyes. In traditional medicine, we're looking at those signs of alive. It's, I am thrilled to be alive. I am thrilled to see you. That is, I have that capacity. If you look at someone who is sick, someone who's dying, they don't have any of that vibrant life force that they can actually share with anyone else. They need support from others to keep themselves going. And I think part of the difficulty in the West is we don't feel connected to each other. We feel independent. That's a roundabout way is that we have aliveness in us and we share it. We do. And I think health is meaning that we have enough energy to share. We want to help someone. We want to be of service in the world. It's not just, "Ah, now I can go back to my job and I can make my money and do my career." It's, I'm doing this for the world, which is more of a traditional concept. In the West, it's me first. And what can I do for myself? And why would I do this for someone else? It doesn't help me. But when you feel how connected we are, if you have children or pets or loved ones in your life, you know that what you do and how well you feel impacts them. And that's our life energy.
Yeah, I think it is a really complicated topic to explore the glint in someone's eye versus a lackluster look of someone perhaps fading. You mentioned that there is that reciprocity that comes from being around people, probably being in nature as well. We exchange and cultivate or dim our energy, whether we're indoors or outdoors or with people we love or around energy vampires. It's like such a subtle thing that we don't love talking about. How does energy work with emotion? There's some research that suggests that anxiety and excitement share some physiological patterns in the
Mhm.
body, which is fascinating to consider.
I think in the West, because we're not allowed to express healthy emotion, certainly as children, we're in certain families, your family, you're not allowed to be angry. Maybe your parents are allowed to be angry, but you're not. So it's very confusing for a little body that's learning, but I'm feeling outraged. If I can't express it, then I have to hold it inside or I have to act out. Maybe I'll hurt my sister or I'll fight the dog, whatever. We need to expel that energy. COVID is a perfect example when we were so isolated and many people were just alone for months at a time. With all of that fear, all of that confusion, and no way to express it in a healthy way, it makes us sick. Energy just needs to move. And that's why going out in nature is great. We really need to make time to move that energy through our body. That can be Qigong or Tai Chi or tapping. Our immune system, our muscles, our nervous system all will hold on to energy every day. If you're sitting in front of a screen or if you're around people who are challenging for you, it's a good chance that you are collecting energy. That's why we have a hard time winding down and going to sleep. In traditional medicine, emotions damaged certain organs. And when I started studying this medicine, it made so much sense to me that if you do too much thinking, if there's too much happiness in your life, too much of anything is not healthy. We need balance. And life is going to throw us all of these different boomerangs and waves and change. All of that is going to be happening. So having a real steady connection to your healthy energy is going to make you more resilient and more able to respond to what actually comes.
I love the explanation here. I reflect on, for example, the grounded feeling that I feel if I have my feet in the sand on a beach, or even like the visualization of feeling grounded and rooted in meditation, kind of like down into the ground. Like it does something in terms of pulling that energy from the top to the bottom. And I think that it makes so much sense how those kind of relationships that we have with nature, with other people, can either shift things or not move things or keep them stagnant. In our current society, we are spending a lot of time up in here, right? Like on our screen. And really, there's a lot of energy that's being brought up to our minds and our thinking selves. And even though the energy is up here, we also experience it throughout our body when we have anxiety or we feel like we're comparing, ourselves to somebody else, or we got an email and then now we're anxious and the energy is in our stomachs despite the fact that the activity is happening in our minds. What does that do to our health, our as a whole?
I think a big distinction for me when I got to Japan was the idea that our mind is not in our heads. We think, but our thoughts can actually be from our heart or they can come from our consciousness. Consciousness is actually a concept that unites us all. There's a field of consciousness that we are all in, rather than this is my thought, my idea about what I'm going to have for dinner. If we can separate our activities from the thoughts and just engage with the field, I think we have a better chance of understanding one, our own energy, but also the energy around us, if that makes any sense. We are often distracted by our thoughts. Don't believe everything you think.
Love
I
that.
can be spinning out on something you're thinking. There's absolutely no reality to it. That's the other thing. It's not easy to be in this body. We have we haven't talked about trauma, but most of us in this time in history have incredible physical trauma, whether it was from our early wounding in our family of origin, but culturally, educationally, there's so much trauma in our field, ancestral trauma, lineage trauma. So that makes it even more complicated to stay in this body. It takes a dedicated practice, but sometimes we can't get there ourselves. There will be a barrier right at the solar plexus where our breath we just cannot take a deep breath. Or there'll be a barrier at the pelvis where the energy doesn't go down to the legs. You don't feel grounded. That's the kind of body work I do.
If I'm hearing you correctly, starting to acknowledge the fact that perhaps there is more than one location of the mind. There is like a heart mind. So if we are constantly operating from the head mind, the thinking mind, we are ignoring that deeper root. I'll be speaking from my personal experience. It definitely rings true. Like analogy that I could use for this experience is like the experience of dieting. When you are restricting your eating based on a diet plan that somebody else prescribed for you, where every single mouthful and morsel is completely commanded by what this document or whoever said that you should be eating X, Y, and Z, versus tuning into the cues of what do you feel like you need? And are you hungry? And are you satiated now? And what do you really need to feel good? Instead of listening to some of those cues and even listening to the cues that might be unpleasant around, oh my gosh, like I have an insane craving after an emotional reaction. Like when all those cues are lost and the subtle body is no longer communicating, something lost. That is a great parallel for the broader spending all of our time in our heads versus tuning into that heart mind.
Yes, that's right. And because everything is so available on the internet, or we can go and get a practitioner to tell us what to do, we have aura rings and we have all of this data where we don't have to feel ourselves. It's like this ring is telling me how I slept. This ring is telling me my readiness level. We have given up the capacities that have evolved in humans for millennia. And why are we so willing to give up those gifts? And it's amazing the perceptions that if you are around little kids, that they are so attuned to themselves and the people around them. And we teach that out of them.
Yeah. I think The practice of embodiment, right? Like the act of actually being in your body when you're experiencing these different things. I think that in our addicted society, which is what we created, it's this one big amusement park that we're living in. It can be so easy to disassociate. I do have a question though. What is cultivated with resilience too? Right? Pretty much every culture in society has had hardships, and people have actually come out of that in many cases feeling happier and more connected than ever before. Part of that is like perspective. I'll speak from my own experience. Like the most difficult experience that I'm having with my mom actually puts so many things in perspective about my day to day stressors and whatnot. And so I'm curious, for those of us that are just living our lives, but want to cultivate that embodiment, but also don't want to oversensitize, how do we balance like pushing ourselves and cultivating that resilience and that strength while still staying embodied?
So there's the idea that change doesn't really happen unless we feel safe. Also, evolution doesn't happen without chaos. Like things get really pretty wild and pretty chaotic before we evolve. And I'll use my personal example. I left my marriage. I was in Japan a long time, got married, had kids, and then I had to leave. And I had to leave the marriage and I had to bring my kids back to America and reboot. And that was one of the hardest things. All of us had to go through that. But in the process, we got much closer, not my ex, but with my kids. We did that hard work of, are you okay? Am I okay? Am I doing something to hurt you? And let's backpedal and figure out, where am I dumping on you so that I can feel okay? And it's that emotional work of, I cannot be dumping on my kids and I don't want them to dump on me. And we have to have those heartfelt gardening processes of, this is not working for me. What can we do differently? And that takes a lot of patience and capacity, which I think builds resilience.
We started off this conversation exploring the cultivation of healthy, vibrant energy and the importance of energetic health. And we're coming full circle in the discussion of like interconnection, the interconnection that we have to other people, to the food we eat, to nature, and how important is that exchange, the energetic exchanges. And we are coming back to the point of the importance of connection. A lot of the activities that we're inundated with today break that connection for a lot of people, right? We're spending time online, disconnected from people, or we're watching a show versus making eye contact and having a conversation. The rates of loneliness are like through the roof. And then now we're building AI for people to talk to. That energetic exchange isn't happening. And so I think that this is like such a great tie in to really provide that lesson and that wisdom from the ancient cultures of
Yes.
what works. And I think we intuitively know it. And it breaks my heart to see that there is a generation of kids for whom this may not be completely second nature because they're raised in a very isolated environment, like during COVID, in front of technology. But I think for anyone listening, an important thing to take away, A, like becoming aware, the fact that there is this energetic body, there is like healthy versus unhealthy aspects to it that we can become in tune to through cultivating that embodiment, but also perhaps that aspect of connection is really the healing.
It's really critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing in the West, we, maybe all over the world, we are, as humans, we are supposed to steward the earth. We evolved to cultivate the earth and protect her. But we have instead plundered her and taken all of, we need this and we needed that. And look at all the great things we've built. But in the process, we've destroyed the relationship we had with the earth. And climate change is clearly showing us that we're getting the signs, but we can go about our life and think, I'll worry about that later. It's not in my neighborhood, it's over there. We are having these massive wake up calls, more and more close in time and location. And we don't have a lot of choice about when to wake up. It's, we better get on it now. And I think as humans, we've evolved just like animals to take care of each other and to take care of the earth. And we need to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Human connection can be really difficult for a lot of people. It seems like, from what I see, that a lot of, as you described it, East Asian cultures have this inherently built into their culture, right? It is like the foundational thread of interconnection exists there. What is something that we individually can do to cultivate that? It's not like an inherent part of our culture right now. In fact, it feels like it's quite the opposite.
And I have to say that when I first got to Japan, I thought you were correct that,
Yeah.
wow, the Japanese have this whole thing figured out. They're so happy. They're under the cherry blossom trees having their picnics, and they're human. They are just as wounded as we are. They're just different wounds. And we can help ourselves by not projecting perfection onto other people, or that person knows more than I do. Life is challenging. Life is challenging for me. It's challenging for you. We all need to figure out our own challenges and then be compassionate and patient with those we see over there who are struggling with whatever they're going through.
Mm,
If I totally deny a whole group of people, they're different from me, I'm not going to worry about them, which the Japanese tend to do. That's a sickness, that's a disease.
mm,
We can't help everyone, but I can help the people in my circle. So I can help my parents, I can help my kids, they help me, my friends. It's a matter of choosing, who do I work with? Just pick your battles, pick your friends. We can't help everyone, but we can help some people and we can help ourselves. And it's finding, I think we talked about energy, but anyone who plays a musical instrument or does art, there's deliberate practice. And I think we do that to get to know ourselves. It's like, where is the line of my concentration? Today I can do a little bit of music, and tomorrow I can do more. But we have to cultivate something in us that kind of makes us more human. I'm just going to scroll, or I'm just going to go shop, or whatever it is that is distracting me. I'm going to
mm,
build something in here. And that's, we didn't get to posture today, but humans have a posture that is aligned with their physiology. Our spine, all of our organs need a certain alignment. And that's when things work well. That's when our metabolism works well, our immune system works well. If we're all hunched down and not breathing and not circulating, then we're definitely not healthy. We need to do things that cultivate it's like a big human, it's like human dignity. I like the expression dignity, which we
mm,
don't use much anymore. We need to be dignified, and that takes some concerted effort on our part. What makes me dignified, what makes you dignified, and it's different for everyone, but we can decide that for ourselves and support people who are learning to be dignified in their lives. I have two elderly parents who really are struggling. It is so hard to get old, and our bodies just give out, and it's so excruciatingly hard to help them. They can't help themselves anymore. And the sooner we can see that we are aging, we are dying. This is another topic too. The whole reality that we are dying needs to be front and center. When we're young, it's like, yeah, I'm immortal. I can do whatever I want. But we don't know when death will come and take us away. So coming back to our human dignity, like, this is the only day, this is the only interaction we have. This is, make the most of it. That's the connection that we can offer to each other, I think.
mm. I love that. And I also love that it's centered in a day. This is the day, this is the moment today. We all know that quote unquote healthy things to do. The difficulty is actually doing them. And I love the term of just start with cultivating that human dignity and being aware of the fact that you could just start today on this day, and just any number of these practices that foster interconnection, that foster that energetic flow that we talked about. I think that's really powerful. It was such a joy speaking with you. I could chat
Thank
for
you.
hours, and the great
Wonderful.
news is that I will get to do that. Not next week, but the week after. Not for hours, but at least for 45 minutes. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me. I would love for you to share with the audience, where can people find you?
I live in Marin, California. I have a website, emilysmithacupuncture.com. I do gentle Japanese acupuncture, but I also do body work. And I really like working with women who are either trying to have children or looking at menopause, all of the life cycle things that women have to navigate. I really like working with people who are trying to get back in their body. If they have activities that they have given up, want to get back to those, I really like working with people like that. I dance. I do Lindy Hop every Sunday in Golden Gate Park. If you are interested in learning how to dance, come out. It's every week, and it's so much fun. That's a big slice of aliveness right there.
I love that. I love that. Oh my God. You are definitely vibrant. Here's something to aspire to without projecting too much onto you. Thank you so much for tuning into The Other Way. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review. It really helps the podcast grow, and I'm ever so grateful. If you want to stay connected, you can find information on how in our show notes. And finally, if you're curious about inflow and want free resources around cyclical living or moon cycles, check out inflowplanner.com. And of course, for all my listeners, you can use the code podcast10 for 10% off any purchase. All right, that's all for today. See you next time.